So let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. We got chapter 12:1. We got sequences. If you look at the next section, we're going to do what's called arithmetic sequences, not arithmetic. It's pronounced arithmetic when we're talking about sequences. And then eventually we're going to talk about geometric sequences is 12:3. So today we're working on chapter 12:1 sequences. We have 3 goals for today. We're going to write the first few terms of a sequence. We're going to use what's called summation notation, and then we're going to find a sequence by hand and by using your calculator. So grab your TI-83s or 84s and get those out. I'm going to help you walk your way through. Okay, so that's what we're working on today. Let me see if I can't zoom in a touch so we can see this a little better. All right, so it says here a sequence is a function whose domain, which is the x values, is the set of positive integers. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? The sequences that I have here, this is an example of a sequence. It's 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? Here's another sequence, 2, 4, 16, 32, dot, dot, dot. Okay? Now, usually there's a pattern in the sequence, and sometimes we're going to ask you to find the pattern, okay? Sometimes we don't. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It says whether the sequence is arithmetic or geometric, some common notation is as follows. Now, for you to understand what arithmetic and geometric are, arithmetic is the first sequence. This one's arithmetic. Look at the pattern. Do you guys see what's going on with this pattern? What keeps happening? Keeps on adding by 2, right? So we're going up by 2. So that's an arithmetic sequence. Do you need a packet? So that's an arithmetic. Anytime you add or subtract to get the next number in the sequence, 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. That's what's called an arithmetic sequence. When I look at the next sequence, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, that's called a geometric sequence. Okay? And what's the pattern here? What does it keep going up by? How do you get the next number in the sequence? How do you go from 2 to 4 to 4 to 8? Yeah, we double it. Okay, so times 2. So we multiply by 2. And again, guys, earbuds and stuff away. You don't need that stuff, right? And those little tiny earbuds, don't lose them though. So terminology, they use subscript. Okay, so we call this A sub 1. Okay, that's the first term. A sub 2 is the second term. A sub 3 is the third term. A sub 4. It's called subscript, kind of like a submarine is below, right? The water. All right, so when the number is below, that's called subscript. So A sub 1, A sub 2, A sub 3, and so on. N is usually represents the number of terms in the sequence. So if I have 15 terms, then N is 15, and so on and so forth. Okay? Well, it says here, 2n is a way of representing the first sequence. So think about 2n. If I plug in 1, I get 2. When I plug in 2, 2 times 2 is 4. If I plug in 3, 2 times 3 is 6, and so on. Okay, the question I have now is how or what is this sequence? What's the formula that would represent 2, 4, 8, 16, 32? So I plug in 1 and I get 2. I plug in 2 and I get 4. I plug in 3 and I get 8. So think of an equation that when I plug in I get 1, and when I plug in 2 I get 2, and I plug in 3 I get 8. When I plug in 4 I get 16, and so on. Can anybody think of an equation? So this is called brainstorming. You just throw out some ideas and I'll say, yeah, that's kind of on the right track, or no, let's think about it. We know it's multiplying by 2, right? 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. Any ideas? What's the equation that we have here? Any ideas? Just any ideas? No? Duncan, any ideas? Andrew? Wade, you got any ideas? Any ideas? We know if this one's adding by 2, we have a 2 in it. So if this one's multiplying by 2, I guarantee there's a 2 involved. Where do we put the n? Ah, yeah, it's an exponent. Very good, Joe. So Joe says make it an exponent. If I plug in 1, 2 to the first is 2. If I plug in 2, 2 squared is 4. If I plug in 3, it's 8. If I plug in 4, it's 16. Very good. So 2 to the n is a geometric sequence. Okay, now if you didn't get that off the top of your head, that's okay. I'm going to show you in the next 2 sections on how to do that for arithmetic and geometric, how to do it algebraically, and it's pretty easy to do. Okay, so let's dive in. Goal number 1, write the first several terms of a sequence. So that's kind of a preview of what we're trying to do here. So example 1, they want the first 5 terms, okay? So the idea is if I want a sub 1, I'm going to plug in 1 anywhere I see n. So I've got n over n plus 3, so I have 1 over 1 plus 3, and I simplify, that's 1/4. And if I want the second term, I plug in 2. So 2 over 2 plus 3. Again, I'm showing a lot of work here just because it's notes. You want to just do 2/5 right there in your head, that's fine. And if I want the third term, plug in 3. 3 over 3 plus 3 is 3/6. Now, if you write that in my math lab, you're going to get it wrong because what do we need to do? We need to simplify, right? In class, if this was a test that I collected, I'd go R, and it's not because I'm a pirate. I have both of my eyes because I want you to reduce R. So this brings me to, probably haven't told this joke yet, but Prairie Ridge, when they came out in 1999, 2000, they were the wolves, right? They should have been the pirates. So then their chant could be, we are PR. Oh, sorry. Bad joke. Bad joke. I get no respect around here. Come on. That was funny. All right. Now, at some point, you're going to start seeing there is a pattern here, right? 1/4, 2/5, 3/6. What's the next one? What's going on with the tops? What's going on with the bottoms? 4/7. Is just going up, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6. Bottom is 7. Okay. So you get at some point where you don't even have to plug the numbers in. You see what's going on with the pattern. And then the next one would be what? 5/8. Okay. So I've got my numbers. I got all 5 terms. Okay. Probably need to put commas between that with my math lab. Okay. All right, so this is where I show you how to use your calculator. So that's how to do it by hand. Probably faster to do it by hand for the most part, but I am going to show you how to use your calculator. So go ahead and get your calculator out. Okay, and I'm using stat. So I'm going to press second stat. Stat is over here, guys. You see it by the directional pad? So here's alpha, here's x, and then stat's right next to it. So I'm going second stat. I'm going to toggle on over. Sorry, fat fingers. So second stat, I'm going to toggle on over to ops. OPS is ops for operations. Okay, and I want the sequence. You see number 5. So again, second stat, toggle on over to ops, down to number 5 sequence. Okay, so I'm going to press enter on sequence. Now for me, I have a TI-84 and I get my sequence like screen up. Okay, if you have a TI-83, you just go right to your home screen and it says sequence and I'll tell you what to type in there. Okay, so the formula that I want to type in for my sequence, my expression, EXPR stands for expression. I have n over n plus 3, so I'm going to use x's. Okay, so I'm going to do x divided by, I have a binomial, so I'm going to divide by that whole thing, x plus 3, close it. Oops. So again, parentheses, x plus 3, close it. So use parentheses around binomials and trinomials, okay? So I have x divided by x plus 3. Variable, you have to determine what your variable is. We're using x's instead of n's, okay? Start, it's starting at the first term, a sub 1, and I'm going to a sub 5. Okay, so my end is 5. You do not need the step. If you don't put step in, it's going to be assumed you're just counting by integers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I just leave that blank. Okay, and there we go. If you have a TI-83, this is where you would type in sequence, put in your expression, x divided by x plus 3, comma is above the 7. Define your variable x, comma 1, your start, comma your end, which is 5. I press enter, and I get a bunch of decimals, okay? Well, anytime we want to change decimals into fractions, we can go math frac. People online, if you're not getting this, oh, I keep on hitting the wrong button here. So again, math frac. And then I get a nice, pretty setup, and these are the numbers we had: 1/4, 2/5, 1/2, 4/7, and 5/8. It will reduce it for you, which is pretty nice. If you have a TI-83, you might have to like use your directional pad and cycle through those so you can see it all, because yours is kind of expanded out. All right. People online, people in class, do you have any questions on how to do that? Okay. So from here on out, you can do sequences using your calculator. I don't normally do it. I usually just do it in my head because it's faster, but you can use your calculator. Okay. So when I look at the next one, example 2, again, if I want the first term, I plug in 1, and show work or not show work, it's up to you. So if I plug in 1, I get -1, n plus 1, so 1 plus 1 is 2, and then n is 1. Anytime I square a negative, it's what? Anytime I square a negative, I get a positive. Yep, and then so I get 1 times 1 is 1. And then I plug in 2. So now I got -1, plug in 2. 2 plus 1 is 3, and then times 2. And then when I take a negative and I raise it to an odd power, it's -1 times 2, and it's -2. And then if you need to, plug in the next one, but by this time you might even see what's going on. Plug in 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. So -1 to the 4th is +1 times 4, or excuse me, 3. Typo, fixed it. I should get +3. And then so on and so forth. A to the 4th is -4, and a to the 5th is +5. Okay, so I get 1, -2, +3, -4, and +5. Or you can use your calculator. Again, from here on out, I don't care how you do it, just as long as you can do it right. Okay, so as I take a look, I go second stat, I go to ops, I go down to sequence just to see that you can do it in the calc. Okay, this is how you do it by hand. My sequence, I'm going to type in what I see there. I have parentheses, -1, close it. And now that's raised to a binomial. Anytime you guys have binomials with your expressions, make sure you put parentheses around that. So parentheses, x plus 1, close it. And then that's times x. So times n, which is just times x. So instead of -1, n plus 1 times n, I have -1 to the x plus 1 power times x. Again, I'm using x as my variable. I'm going for the first term, a sub 1 to 5, and then I paste it. Okay. I press enter, does it all for me. So I got 1, -2, 3, -4, 5. Okay. I could probably do it by hand way faster than using my calculator, but you do have that option. I don't care how you do it, just as long as you do it right. All right, questions, y'all. People in Zoom land, people in class, how are we doing? Give me a thumb. We're doing thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. No questions. We're doing all right. Again, reminder, if you want these notes, they're in the vestibule. If you're in class tomorrow and you don't have them, ask for them. Ladies and gentlemen, let's finish up. We got goal number 2 and 3 using summation notation. So using summation notation and then writing out this summation, okay? So what we have here is that you guys should know that math teachers are kind of lazy, okay? So summation notation is just a easy way for us to write out a sum of a sequence, okay? So instead of writing out a long sequence, A, which is another word for way to write A sub 1. So A plus A sub 2 plus A sub 3 plus A sub 4 plus A, instead of writing all that out, they use summation notation, and they use this little letter here. Does anybody know what letter that is? Let me see if I can't pull up. Does anybody know what letter that is? What alphabet is it from? This is the Greek alphabet. Yeah? Where do you see Greek letters? Huh? Yeah, we see it in the summation, right? So that's epsilon, okay? But where, or excuse me, that's sigma. Where is, where do you see that stuff at? Have you seen that anywhere? You see it in physics, right? Do we have any seniors out there moving on from Carrot Grove next year? Colleges, why would you see them in colleges? Huh? They're Greek letters, right? This is for frats and sororities. So if you run into a house that has these Greek letters, okay, that means get out of there, right? They just want your money. So stay away from those guys, right? Okay, all you're doing is paying for friends. You guys are cool enough, you don't need to pay for friends. Oh, I'm just kidding. Don't get mom or dad who's like Delta, Delta, Delta on here. They can get me all mad, getting all mad. I was just kidding. It was a joke. It was a joke. You don't need to pay for friends though. All right, so this is sigma. This is, again, Greek letters. As you can tell, I was not a frat boy. I had enough friends. Anyways, it asks us to write out each sum and find the sum of each sequence by hand, okay? So I'm going to show you how to do this by hand and with your calc. Well, right here, okay, the summation from k equals 1 to n. And then this is what we call our sequence. So this is where we start, and this is where we end at. Okay, so this one says I'm starting at the first term, and I'm going all the way to the fifth term. Okay, so the idea is I have my sequence 3k. I'm going to plug in 1. 3 times 1, you know, is 3. And then we plug in 2. 3 times 2, you know, is 6. And again, I'm showing a lot of work here. 3 times 3. And that's 9, but just so you can see what's going on. Plug in 4, that's 12. And then 3 times 5, we know is 15. So if they ask us to write it out, this is me writing out the sequence. So if my math lab says, hey, write it out, there you go, okay? If they ask me to find it, that's literally adding them all up, okay? So 3 plus 6 is 9, plus 9 is 18, plus 12 is 30, plus 15 is 45. Okay? Good stuff. Now you can use your calc. Yes, sir.
So all the symbol means is just add them all together, right?
That's summation. Yeah. It's sigma is the Greek letter, and it just means add them all up. Okay. Now, when you write them out, make sure you don't put commas in between, like 3, 6, 9. That's the sequence. They want you to write out the sum, so there should be plus signs in between. Okay. So yes, you can use your calculator to come up with these numbers. Like if I went back second stat ops and I did sequence, okay, my expression would be 3x. My variable is x. I'm going from the first to the fifth term, and I paste that, and those are the numbers. But when you type it in MyMathLab, put pluses between them, okay, if they ask you to write it out, all right? Now, if you have a TI-84 and they just want you to find the sum and they don't want you to write it out, this is where we use the math menu. So if you look at the math menu and you go all the way down, you'll see log base in there we use for logs and exponentials. Above that is what we call summation. Okay. Now this is pretty sweet because we literally type it in like we see it. Instead of k's though, we're going to use x's. So x in 1, this is 5, and then we have 3x. And then we press enter, and we get 45. Okay, so again, that's in the math menu. Go all the way down past 9. It'd be technically like 10, I believe. It's at 0. So math menu, all the way down, summation, and then we type them in. Okay. If you do not have summation and you have a TI-84, you can get summation notation, but you're going to have to download it from the Texas Instrument website. I cannot do, I used to do it for you, but I used to actually have a real working PC laptop. And now we have these Chromebooks and I can't save anything and I can't do it. So if you do have like a MacBook at home, I think Mac will be able to download it for you. Or if you have a PC at home and you don't have the new operating system for your TI-84, that's probably if you have a black and white screen. Some of you guys might have older models of 84, okay? You can get summation and log based on your calc. If you have a TI-83, understand that came out in 1995 or 1996 when Mr. Gotsch was still in high school, right? So that thing's a dinosaur, all right? So yeah, that thing's old, and you do not have that option for summation notation in the math menu. However, you can still do it. You're just going to have to follow this little rule. So we go second stat, okay? Go all the way to math menu. This is for my TI-83 people. There's a few of you out there, I think. And we go sum. So we go down to number 6, sum. Okay, and then we got to do the sequence. We're doing sum of the sequence. So now we have sum. Now we go second stat over to ops. We go sequence, sum of the sequence, number 5. And then we can type in 3x, comma, x, comma, 1, comma, 5. Okay, unfortunately, TI-83s don't have this. This is what it's going to look like. So sum sequence, again, 3x, comma, x, comma, 1, comma, 5. The comma for you guys is above the 7. Okay, and understand that this is your, what I call your nth term. Okay, this is your variable, so everybody's going to have x. This is your start, and that's your n. So if you have a TI-83 or 84, 83 specifically, or an 84 that's not updated, this was how you would do it by your calculator. Plus enter, and you get that 45 that we got. Okay. All right. Do we have any questions? All right, let's do one more, and it'll be time to go. Look at that. So write it out. That means we got to plug in. It doesn't always start at 1. It just so happens these two have k equals 1 on the bottom. It could be k equals 2 or k equals 3 on the bottom. And then this goes to 6 this time. So I need to plug in 1. So -1 to the first power, and then 4 times 1. So that's what? 4 times -1 is -4. And then I do the next one. So I plug in 2. So -1 squared. And then 4 times 2. So that's 1 times 8. That's plus 8. And then I can do the next one. -1 cubed. And then 4 times 3. So that's -12. And then the next one would be plus 16. And then minus, what, 20? And then plus 24. So again, when I plugged in 3 and I started seeing the notation, the sequence starts replicating, right? And it alternates negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. Okay, so when you're adding a negative, you're really subtracting. Go ahead and add those guys together. This is 4, that's 4, and that's 4. So 4 plus 4 plus 4, I get 12. So again, if they ask me to write it out, I have to list these numbers with pluses and minuses in between. And if they ask me to find it, this is my final summation. Okay? Again, if they just ask you to find it, well, that's where I would use my summation in the calc. Math menu, go all the way down to 0, summation. And then x starts at 1, it goes all the way to the 6th term. And then, now, this is where you guys get mixed up, okay? They have given you guys parentheses here, okay? Your entire term should fit into those parentheses. Yes? They probably want the right order. Question is, does order matter? I would assume yes. Okay? So this is where you guys get mixed up, that, especially a problem like this where it starts with parentheses, okay? The parentheses that they give you should be on the outside of your term, right? So these parentheses here, you need to put this thing inside of that. Does that make sense? So this starts with parentheses. You got to start your own parentheses in. So parentheses -1, close it, raise it to the x power, and then 4x, okay? And then we get our 12. The problem we get is math menu. Where I see you guys make mistakes, you type this in right, you type that in right, but then you do this, you do -1 and you go, okay, raise it to the x power and then 4x. And what you're doing is you're only doing a summation of -1 and then everything else is on the outside, and that's not, you get this thing, and that's not right, okay? So whatever parentheses that they give you, your whole term needs to be in there, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, do we have any questions?